Hey guys, Darcy here from the Tonal Persuasion Method for Sales. Honored to be joined by Jonathan Dawson of Sellchology. Thanks for joining us, Jonathan.
It's my pleasure, it really is.
Yeah, awesome. So Jonathan's over in Atlanta. And Jonathan, when did we first connect? I think it would have been almost probably about a year ago now, maybe 8 to 9 months ago. I'm unsure.
I would have to pull it up, but I would say that you're within the realm of the timeline. It would have been somewhere within that window of 9 months to a year.
Yeah. And so one of the main reasons that we've connected, and I think one of the main reasons we've stayed so connected up until now, Jonathan, is we hold a very similar view on sales and what creates a good salesperson from a number of two aspects. And the first one is, which, for those that don't know, Jonathan's, if you haven't picked it up, Jonathan is from Atlanta. So we do tend to have different views on sales from Australia to America, and there's these differences that get thrown up. But one of the main things about sales is, number one, is the motivational aspect of it. You got to be able to do the do. You got to be get up. You got to be high energy, all of this. But one of the things that we've connected over so well, Jonathan, is the psychology of sales and how it is created and how the most successful salespeople actually think from what we call it, just a psychology perspective, a pattern-wise psychology perspective. And so I think that, you're quite a master of that stuff. So it's an honor to be able to share this with the community with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, really. So I think when you say, the differences between Australia or the US, or really just anywhere in the world that you might try to say, where are the differences? I think there's way more similarities than there are differences. I like to jokingly say, my stuff only works on humans. So I found that so far it works. And when I traveled to New Zealand about a year ago, I actually spent about a week in New Zealand. A company found my company through a seminar where I was a presenter, and they came up to me at the end of the presentation. They said, hey, so we're down here, we're these, in New Zealand, these Kiwis, it's different. It's the other side of the world. Do you think your stuff would work down here? And I said, well, you're the one who sat through my hour-long presentation. You're asking me the question, do you think it would work? I don't know. I mean, I've never lived there. And you tell me. Yeah. You sat through an hour. Do you think it would work? And they went, we think it would work so well. We think it would be amazing. I said, well, then, yeah, if you think it would work, I guess then I think it would work.
Yeah, fantastic. So with that in mind, Jonathan, the best part about this is you don't know any of the questions that are coming. So that's either one of two things. It's either highly irresponsible and probably a bit foolish, or it's highly entertaining for the people that are going to be watching this. But I know I'll be able to put you on your feet.
A little both, maybe. A little both.
That's it. So the first thing that I want to ask you is, from a psychology perspective and the understanding of how sales are truly made and what leads us to make decisions, within that context, what do you think is the most important thing that sales professionals are able to get across to their prospective buyer?
I would say the most significant or most important aspect of being a great salesperson is that the person on the other end can authentically sense that you authentically see their perspective. I think empathy is really one of the strongest skill sets or the strongest attributes a sales professional should develop and be intentional about. I think that when the client on the other end senses that you authentically want to see the world through their perspective, but better than that, because of your perspective, you can take them to where they want to go. I think that's when you've achieved, if you want to say, an apex level or a high level of sales influence.
Yeah. What do you think a lot of sales professionals are missing between where they are and the empathy that they require? Do you think it's a self-awareness thing, or is it just a natural growth path?
Well, I certainly think that experience can be a teacher. I think there's an expression that says that wisdom doesn't come from experience, it comes from evaluated experience. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
And so simply repeating, if you will, the same problem over and over again won't necessarily make you better at solving it. But I do believe that that self-awareness, the intentionality of the act of asking yourself questions, trying to be honest with your answers. But I would go a step further in a practical sense. One of the kind of critical moments for me in my sales career was when I was willing to do the most embarrassing thing many of us can do, which is to listen to ourselves on a recording.
Yeah.
I think it's
It's
a
tough.
phenomenal exercise, isn't it? The first time you listen to yourself on a recording, whether it's your own voicemail or somebody recorded something, or you watch yourself on a video and you go, I don't sound anything like that. That's not me. That's some imposter, right? Because we have this disconnect, this natural disconnect, almost like a defense mechanism. We have our own self-perception of who we are and what we sound like, and then we have what we actually are.
Yeah.
Well, one of the exercises that I did, this is now going on, like almost 20 years ago when I started really selling, was I went out and bought a little micro recorder, put it in my pocket, and every time I walked out to engage a client, I recorded myself. I recorded and kept a journal. And in that process, I had broken my sales process into a bunch of like 5, 7, 10-minute chunks that were critical steps of my sale. And what I did was I conditioned myself for an entire week to just record an entire segment of my conversation. So in the first week, I recorded the first 5 to 7 minutes. And then when the customer interaction and I ended, I took out my journal, and I had an actual journal, and I played it with my Walkman. Back then, they were the Sony headphone Walkmans, you know?
Don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. And I played that audio clip, that 7-minute clip, back to myself, and I just journaled the things I said, the things they said, and I began to realize and discover the patterns. And if we could get into that at some point, but I think pattern recognition is one of the critical steps for growth and success. And for me, the tool of the recording was really one of those things that gave me the ability to be that self-aware that you're describing. Because I think just trying to be self-aware by yourself is very hard, because we have this built-in deceptive mechanism where we see ourselves differently than we actually are.
Love it. I do want to touch on that idea of pattern recognition. I believe as a sales professional, as a business owner, the key to sales isn't necessarily knowing anything about your product. It's all about, I mean, of course that comes into it, but it's all about understanding the patterns of why people buy. Yeah. And I know for me personally, for those that have followed the Tonal Persuasion Method stuff, it's all, one of the major patterns I talk about is understanding the problem that you solve and how that fits into the buyer's reality, right? And why your solution fits into their reality. Now that's it on a surface, so that's even a surface level pattern. But underneath, the psychology of why people buy is an astounding field. And so personally, I'd always teach, understand that people are always looking to solve problems for themselves. And problem isn't necessarily a negative thing. There's quality problems, right? But people are always aiming to solve problems. This is why Sudoku became such a, you know what Sudoku is? Those 9-number things. Yeah. They became massive at one stage there, is because you put a problem in front of people and they love to solve it. But I'd love to hear from you. What do you think is the major psychological frame through which you see sales from a pattern recognition perspective?
Well, so to give some of your audience who may not have followed either yourself that closely or myself yet, but this concept or conversation about patterns may be new to them or newer, let me give a little bit more of my perspective on it. So I believe success in general, and this is true of any field, is the ability to properly identify, to properly utilize and anticipate patterns. I think that you could take this into any field. For example, a boxer, a professional boxer or fighter, their ability to anticipate and identify the pattern of a punch or a kick coming at them, that ability of anticipation, the ability of prediction of patterns is critical. And when I teach in my trainings, I teach that you have to first be able to identify that there are patterns. Once you recognize what those patterns are, to be able to then say, okay, if there's a pattern, then there is the innate ability to predict. And if there isn't the ability to predict, there's the ability to prevent. So when we can identify the pattern, we can predict it. If we can predict it, we can prevent it, especially if those common objections or challenges. So in the sales conversation, it's really the same thing. It's identifying that certain clients or customers are going to come with certain types of fears or objections or hesitations or reservations of some sort, or problems, if you want to call them that, and that there are patterns. And these things fall into, if you want to call them clusters or groups or themes or categories, the ability to recognize what those are gives you the unique competitive advantage of being able to position yourself in anticipation of solving that problem before the customer feels the heightened fear of it or the heightened pain of it. This allows you to then to join them in that journey of discovering what their real problem is, helping them to understand the relevance of it and the significance and the consequence of it. Once that's discovered jointly, and you're the one who walked them through that journey, there's an implied level of trust. You're like their navigator. You're like you're the guide through this, this jungle of their dreams, and you're going to be the one that navigates them through that process. So I think patterns is very critical. I think that the sales professional who wants to position themselves as the higher authority expert and the trusted advisor needs to be one who takes the time to identify in their sales process and with their client, their ideal client, what are those patterns, and where can you then insert your promise, your solution, and insert that in there critically at the point where the client's going to say, wow, this is what I've been waiting for. You are the answer to my prayer.
Yeah, that's very powerful, man. I love that. The key is when you can see patterns and you can understand how to call the play in advance, you're always thinking 2 moves ahead, is you can help the client language what they can sense for themselves, but not verbalize yet.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly it. And once you can actually language that for them, you become the voice in their mind because they are completely trusting. It's highly powerful.
Yeah, so one of the principles that I teach in the sales field that I market to directly, so for your audience who may not know, Sellchology is selling through psychology, right? So that's my brand.
Yeah.
But the niche that I work with predominantly is the automotive industry. It was an automotive group that invited me to New Zealand for that week to work with their team. But my personal niche is solving the problems for the automotive buyer and in this case, the automotive retailer, the dealer, and the salesperson. So in that process of buying a car, there's certain patterns that emerge, there's certain challenges that are common. In fact, it's not that difficult to sit down and I identify what they are. The average customer comes on the lot with certain fixed fears or concerns that are standardized across anybody who's ever shopped for a car.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is position yourself as the one who exposes that and shows that to them in a way that they say, wow, I was feeling this, but I didn't know really, like you said, how to articulate. I didn't understand at the level I now do. And now that you've helped me understand this, I'm not afraid of you anymore. And one of the principles that I teach is this idea that says, and this is kind of funny because it's really intuitively obvious, right? But when you meet somebody, you've never had a disagreement or an argument with anyone who thinks like you, right? So this is, again, it's pretty simple. I've never had a disagreement or argument with anyone who thinks like me. I only have those with people who don't think like me.
Yeah.
So what I want to teach my students and my clients to do is I want to teach them how to enter into a conversation in such a way with this anticipation in the system so that I'm literally saying the things the client is thinking or is about to think. And when I speak from your perspective, Darcy, if I can actually say the words you would want to say yourself, what happens is subconsciously you begin to think, oh, this person thinks like me. Mm. And when someone thinks the way another person thinks, they automatically like the way that person thinks. And if you like the way I think, you can't help but like me too. Yeah. So the law of attraction and familiarity kicks in when you meet somebody and you go, gosh, I was going to say that. That was what I was thinking. This person's like almost reading my mind. The moment that happens, a subconscious bond begins to form where we immediately attribute to that person our qualities. And if I like myself and I see you talking like I would talk, I immediately like you too. So liking kicks in, the halo effect kicks in, and I start thinking that this person's a freaking genius because they think like I think, and I'm a genius. So if they're a genius, I'm a genius. Right? So, and that's really the problem is when you meet a salesperson, your initial guard goes up because you're thinking, oh my gosh, this person's probably going to be an idiot. But when you remove that barrier by demonstrating this anticipation, then the client goes, this is so easy. You make it so easy to talk to, and you're solving my problem.
I love it. That's powerful stuff. Jonathan, I could talk for hours on this and add this value. I'm sure that we will continue to do some more stuff around this. But we do need to wrap it up there. And I want to thank you so much because what you've just given, that value there in the plain way, the plain and simple way that you put it to understand it is highly valuable and instantly implementable. So thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. Is there anywhere people can go to find out more about your stuff? Is there anywhere you'd like to send them right now? This stage is yours.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, I always just tell people who are curious about Sellchology to just throw it into Google. So you type in Sellchology and it's spelled S-E-L-L for the word sell, and then C-H-O-L-O-G-Y. And that's, of course, the merging of cell and psychology, Sellchology. So if you throw Sellchology into Google, you'll find all kinds of things about me. You'll see video clips, articles, my blog. You'll get access to anything that you need to know about me. But I'd like to, if I may, Darcy, just give one more practical example. Is that okay?
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
So I want to give an example that, again, I think the average consumer can relate to, and everybody who's on your listeners is at some point a consumer themselves. And if you can understand and grasp this concept and this specific example, and then you want to translate it into your field and into your type of sales, I think you'll find that the principle translates beautifully into any type of selling. So I'll take a classic example, again, from my field, which is the car business. The customer shows up on the lot and they're looking for a car. Now, consciously, they know they need to interact with a sales professional in order to get access to the vehicles, to open it up, to take it for a drive, and so forth. So you have a conscious awareness of the need to talk to a salesperson. But when that salesperson engages you, the initial reaction is subconscious, right? So your first reaction is fear, hesitation, doubt, concern, apprehension, or whatever it goes into, here comes the salesman, right? So when asked, which is oftentimes done by a sales professional, they might say something like, hi there, sir, do you need any help today? Or what brought you out? Can I help you? Or has anyone helped you? So you're being asked, can I help you? And the reaction the average customer will give is, no thanks, that's okay, I'm just looking.
Yeah.
And I found this is true whether you're in an electronics store, furniture store, clothing store. If a sales rep says, can I help you? The initial reaction by almost every client is, a customer is, no thanks, I don't need any help right now. Which is not true at all. It's actually counterproductive to what they need. They need help. Their subconscious reaction takes over and rejects the offer, right?
Yeah.
Now, in my training, what I would teach that sales professionals to change the language to anticipate the pattern, right? So I said there's always a pattern. If you can predict the pattern, you can prevent it. So my greeting that I would teach if I saw you out on a dealership inventory or looking around is, as I walked up to you, giving you a little bit of space as I greet you, I might say something like this. I might say, hi there, sir. Are you out doing some looking and some shopping today? Now, by asking you, are you doing a little bit of looking and shopping today? Your initial reaction was to say, oh, no, I don't need any help. But that's not what I asked you. I didn't ask you if you needed help. I asked you if you were looking and shopping, which is in fact what you are doing.
Yeah.
And because it is in fact what you are doing, and not only what you are doing, but what you wanted to tell me you were doing, I'm just looking, is what you wanted to say. Now that I've initiated, are you out doing some looking today? You feel like this pattern interruption has taken place. Like, yeah, I guess I am. And now the beginning stage of the relationship has started where I've initiated what you were thinking. So now you don't have a conflict to overcome. There is no objection even to resolve. This proactive way of selling means that I don't have to overcome objections. I can literally create an environment where the objections won't come up. Because if you can speak from the customer's perspective, they have no reason to give you objections to begin with.
Absolutely. Both unconsciously and consciously, subconsciously and consciously, they're not there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if you take that pattern and play it out in a sales process of anticipating the client's needs, anticipating their thoughts, concerns, or fears, or even their requests of what they would like, this level of anticipatory service is the highest form of selling.
That is absolute gold. I love it. I love that we extended for the extra couple of minutes. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add around that?
No, simply that I would just say that, I've followed your work, Darcy, now for, as I mentioned, whether it's 9 months or a year, and immediately was drawn to it because not only is your material spot on, I think, with the accuracy in which you describe these principles and the effectiveness of the psychology of selling, but your ability to articulate it and to compartmentalize these concepts in this tonal persuasion method, I think is just revolutionary. It's one of the most beautiful and elegant ways I've seen a presentation to be shared on how to sell effectively. So I'm just really
appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm sincerely encouraged by watching you. You are a breath of fresh air in the sales space, and I cannot wait to see you on the big stage with some big names out there that we all admire. I want to sit in the audience and go, I remember that guy back when. I wonder if he'll sign my badge.
As I really appreciate
to all your fans out there, I just want to encourage them, take what you're doing, take what Darcy's doing to heart, take it seriously, and get to his next tonal persuasion workshops or seminars and webinars. Please, it'll be to your benefit.
You're an absolute legend. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Jonathan.
My pleasure.
Awesome, man.